My family often jokes that I began writing before I could speak, and some days I seriously doubt it's even a joke. I do not feel whole without a pen and notebook in my hand. I understand my own soul so much more clearly on paper than I ever could through speech. See, I collect words the way some people collect coins, or stamps or CDs. I have dozens in journals and on my phone, scrawled into the margins of school notes, sprinkled into poetry and everyday conversations, words like serendipity. Noun, a chance occurrence of events in a happy or beneficial way. Or iridescent, adjective producing rainbow-like colors. Bombinate, verb, to make a humming noise. Gossamer, cynosure, pulchritude, limerence, they are soft in a way I can't help but cling to. I think perhaps I collect these words to avoid much sharper ones. Words like major depressive disorder. Noun, a mental disorder characterized by persistent sadness. Or generalized anxiety disorder. Noun, a mental disorder characterized by excessive anxiety in everyday situations. Obsessive compulsive disorder. Noun, a mental disorder characterized by unwanted and repeated thoughts, feelings, sensations, and behaviors. Hyperacusis. Noun, increased sensitivity to usual environmental sound as typical of mental disorders. Dissociation. Derealization. Panic attack. Suicidal ideation. Words like that, those are the ones that I hide from. Words like that are not soft, but sharp, as gunshots, as unmarked graves, as stinging eyes without the chlorine to justify them. Words like that are the ones that terrify me, and the ones I cannot stop staring in the face. Once, my mother asked me why I write so many poems about sadness. It is because if you take the word sadness, if you take the word anxiety, if you take sharp words and you repeat them enough times, in enough ways, with enough metaphors, they start to blend into each other. They start to lose their sharpness. From the moment I was diagnosed, I couldn't talk about my illnesses with anyone in my life, not to my family, who found it laughable that anyone could possibly feel sad for no reason, or to my teachers, who were more concerned with the fact that my grades were dropping and I'd started sleeping in class than any particular reason behind that, or to my friends, who seemed to see suffering as a given, the inevitable and even desired side effect of straight A's and a flawless resume. So tell me this. How do you walk up to someone who cares about you and say, hey, fun fact, did you know that more people in buildings on fire die from jumping out the window than from burning to death? How do you look them in the eye and say, hey, fun fact, did you know that my body is a building on fire and those windows are looking so damn tempting right now? You don't. Of course you don't. If you did, no one would know how to reply. And certainly no one would say, I feel the same way. So I didn't say the thoughts that terrified and saddened me. Instead, I wrote them all down. I wrote and I wrote and I wrote about the mental illnesses I have that are shared by millions, depression, and the ones I have that no one else has ever heard of, hyperacusis. I read about drifting away from friends who complained when my OCD forced me to compulsively organize their houses whenever I came over, who accused me of having first world problems when I couldn't make myself stop until those books on the coffee table were set at a perfect right angle. I read about waking up in the middle of the night with stinging wrists because I'd been picking at them in my sleep, and about making excuses when people asked me why my arms were so red and swollen. I read about not needing to study for my AP psychology tests because, trust me, I sat through enough psychiatrist appointments to more than memorize the effect of serotonin on our dopamine pathways. All of the sharpness I could not share with the people who loved me yet did not know how to help, I instead put into words. All of the hurting, the darkness, and the light too, wherever I could find it, however much I could scavenge. And I noticed something. That with every word I wrote, my mental disorders moved one step further away from consuming me. My illnesses told me that I was nothing, but the words promised me that I could be everything. So when I started putting my poems and stories and essays about mental illness on a small blog in the vast internet, perhaps I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was when the emails started flooding in. I started my blog 2 years before my first diagnoses of depression and anxiety. In that time, I amassed a small but loyal following of about 2,000 people. In the 2 years following my diagnoses, when I began writing about them openly, that number grew to almost 30,000. What I started to realize was that no one else, on the internet or elsewhere, was talking about illness real time, chronicling every up and down of their journey. Every poem or book or story or article that I read about mental illness was written in the past tense. And while I devoured every one of those words, still I yearned for more. It felt like everyone else had already moved on with their lives and recovered from their illnesses. That dark spot in their lives brushed over and tied up in a neat bow. But my experience with illness has never been neat. I've never been able to compartmentalize. My journey has never been linear. My everyday battles never obvious to those around me. I assumed I was the only one, but as the blog grew, first tens, then hundreds, then thousands, and then tens of thousands of readers around the world, all with illnesses both similar to and starkly different from my own, thanked me for putting their struggles into words, and I started to realize how very wrong I was. With every essay about having panic attacks when teachers did not dot the letter I on the whiteboard, came another person with OCD saying, "I'm so glad I found you." With every story about my ears flaring so badly I went into sensory overload, came another person with hyperacusis saying, "Reading your words feels like coming home." With every poem about days when even falling asleep felt like a Herculean task, came another person with depression saying, "Thank you for breaking the silence." My readers tell me that somehow they found me, a stranger living half a world away, and they felt a little less alone. That because of what I've written, they stood through the storm for one more day. This accidental community that has formed around my words both holds me up and allows me to reach out a hand to others. What gets me out of bed on the days when it would be so much easier not to is the thought of trying to be someone for my readers what no one else ever was for me. Here's what people don't tell you about building a community like this. It is definitely not all sunbeams and rainbows. Every kind email I receive from one of my readers, there are 5 more waiting in my inbox telling me that I need to just get over it. Or that I should think positive. or that it's all in my head, or my favorite, at least I don't have AIDS. The ignorance is just as rampant in real life, both for myself and for the readers who have written in to share their experiences. And I know that what I face is just a fraction of it. And yet, I think it's worth it. If only for everything that the words have brought me and my readers, for the friendships that I formed, for every way that the words have served as a bridge to feeling okay again. What I'm learning is that my stories are our stories. When I was diagnosed, the closest people to me who understood what I was going through were Sylvia Plath and Ernest Hemingway. It is no hyperbole to say that those words saved my life 1,000 times over. They talked me down from every ledge. I chose this life so many times, only for the sake of a single poem, or for an essay that I loved and wanted to stick around to read again. These days, I'm lucky enough to have more than that. A community of readers, hundreds of people who I know I can message at a moment's notice, who know exactly what to say to calm me down. And more importantly, people who know that they can do the same for me. There are so many who have sent me photographs of lines from my poetry tattooed on them, who have told me how my words have pushed them to attend therapy, who have forwarded my blog to friends and family who desperately want to understand what they are going through. What older literature did for me, my words are doing for them, talking them through the storm, catching them before they hit the bottom. You see, words are not enough to cure the pain that exists in my head and in so many others. But they are enough to remind us that every part of us, even the parts that our illnesses trick us into despising, is trying so hard to keep us going through the fog. The words turn our pain from horror into tenderness. They remind us that every part of us is trying to keep us going through the fog. Mental illness is perhaps the most isolating thing in the universe, and it is absolutely essential to hear from others who are going through the same thing. We all need to know that even if only an ocean away, there's someone battling through exactly the same thing that we are. This is how we bandage our wounds, together, step by step, word by word. We cannot do much to escape the pain that our illnesses inflict upon us, but with the words, we can tell our stories. We can ask questions, and we can listen with compassion to their answers. We can remind each other of the demons that we have beaten over and over again. We can stand in solidarity against our illnesses. We can fight. We can hold each other close. The words are lifelines keeping us tethered to each other. They remind us how we can be heavy-hearted and still shine like lighthouses. How we can be dead tired and still soldier on. So yes, I am still a work in progress. But at the very least, I am holding a pen. I'm reading words that make me feel alive, and sharing words that help so many others in their own battles. The words taught Jonah, a 71-year-old with depression, to begin forgiving himself. They taught Marie, a 49-year-old with bipolar disorder, to begin believing that the universe is built on the faith that everything will turn out all right in the end. They taught Lily, an 18-year-old with bulimia, to begin ending the war that she had waged on her body. They taught Xiang, a 22-year-old with anxiety, to begin understanding that the softness exists everywhere if only he looks closely enough. They taught Yana, an 11-year-old with PTSD, to begin grounding herself in a world where no one else but the words can understand the horrors that she's seen. They taught Diego, an 80-year-old with social phobia to begin trusting the outside world again. They taught Sean, a 35-year-old with OCD, to begin finding beauty in asymmetry. And they are teaching me that the words, "You are not alone," are the softest and most powerful that I could hope to wield. I think that is what they call healing. And so, to conclude this talk of mine, I would like to share with you a poem about my own journey with mental illness. It is called Faith. There is this religion I know of in which every morning I wake up and I am not sad. My temple no longer propped up by Prozac, but molded into the shape of a heart that wants to keep beating, that yearns to live through the dreaming. The emptiness in my head is big enough to stop a clock, to end a winter, but look. Here is this offering of a life a little bit saved. A shrine to the name of wrists scarred, yet still diffused in hallelujah. There's this deity I know of, and its name is No, I'm not okay. But I promise I'm working up to it. Its name is forgiveness that outlasts the empty. The light is in no hurry to be found, but that's okay. I'm beginning to trust in the kind of patience that exists when breath is not a prelude to funeral march. Here's a prayer in which every word for loss is replaced with a word for tomorrow. Silver winter is a sermon of memory, and the body, which sings in some strange language called hope. Perhaps one day I will find God in the shards of gentle left over from all this awakening. Healing comes slow, little by little, morning by morning, winter by winter. Here is religion, the impossible knowing that one of these days I will wake up and I will not be sad. Every broken morning is worth that faith.